Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go! This all happened about 5 or 6 years ago. I just thought of this story when Facebook suggested I add Pete as a friend. I used to be a bar manager at a decent-sized resort, multiple restaurants, bars and pools. The outdoor pool had a small bar by it. All the bartenders hated to be assigned to that one because the tips were less out there. I would rotate the bartenders out there, so it was fair for everyone. Pete complained about being out there the most. In order to make it a little better out there, we would let them close early if sales were below $500. 5 p.m. instead of 7 p.m. Pete was the one that closed early most of the time. I just assumed that he was lazy. Everyone else grinded to make the most tips. Just some information on Pete. He was around 22, 23, going to school to become a CPA, certified public accountant, and had a frat bro vibe about him. Well, one day I get called to the front desk. Someone there wants to talk to me. When I get there is a cop on vacation with his family. He tells me he saw the bartender Pete pocketing money out there. I thanked him. Without proof I cannot do anything, so I convinced IT and security to add a new camera hidden in the rafters to cover the register. The one that was out there only covered the bar area. It is shockingly easy to see if he's stealing. Watch the camera to see when he makes a drink, then check a register to see if one is rung up. Everything has a timestamp. After reviewing the footage, we see that Pete is pocketing money out there, and that is why his sales are low enough to close early. We are all mad, and the director wants to fire him right away. I convince him a slow approach would be better, that we can make an example out of Pete. We let it continue for 3 months, till the amount stolen is now in the felony amount. In the state this was located in, that is $2,000. Pete would only work at this bar 2 or 3 days a week, so it took a little while. It is at this point that Pete puts in his 2 weeks notice because he's going to be graduating college and he already has a job lined up. So finally, it's time for my revenge. We wait till 3:45 to have Pete come into the office. When he comes in, he's greeted to the sight of 2 police officers, the head of security, the head of HR, the director of food and beverage, and myself. We don't even give him the chance to explain. We tell him we have him on tape stealing and that he's been arrested. We have him walked out in handcuffs at the employee entrance just as all the night shift employees are coming into work. Now see, in order to be a CPA, one of the requirements is you have to be of good moral character. The felony of theft means that he can never get his CPA license. Needless to say, his job offer is revoked. So when I convinced the director to wait, I knew that was going to prevent him from ever getting his dream job. The moral of the story is, do not steal from me. Period. As a flight attendant assigned to Karen's aisle, I was the one who bore the brunt of her entitled rage. From the moment she stepped onto the plane, she was demanding and disrespectful. "Excuse me, miss," Karen said, practically sneering at me as I greeted her at her seat. "I need extra pillows and blankets, and make sure they are the good ones, not the cheap ones." I tried to smile and be professional despite her rude tone. "I'm sorry, ma'am, but we've run out of both. Is there anything else I can do for you?" Karen's eyes narrowed and her voice took a menacing tone. "You can go and find some for me, or you will be sorry." I knew I had to handle the situation carefully. "I apologize, ma'am, but it is not possible for me to get more pillows and blankets. Is there anything else I can do to make your flight more comfortable?" Karen huffed and crossed her arms. "Fine, but I expect top-notch service from you. Do you understand?" "Yes, ma'am," I replied, trying to keep my cool. But Karen's demands only got worse as the flight went on. She started yelling at other passengers and threatening to have them thrown off the plane if they didn't do as she said. She demanded drinks and snacks and became increasingly angry when I couldn't fulfill her requests. She She even demanded that I switch seats for her, even though the plane was completely full. It wasn't until Karen started threatening to hijack the plane that I knew I had to take action. She leaned in close to me, her voice dripping with venom. "If you don't do exactly as I said, I'll hijack this plane. Do you understand me? You don't want me to pull out my gun. I'll do it, I swear." I was terrified, but I knew I had to stay calm and report that threat to the captain. I approached him discreetly and whispered what Karen had said. His face turned grave, and he made the difficult decision to divert the flight and request assistance from the law enforcement. He said, "We have to land the plane and have her removed," trying to remain calm despite the seriousness of the situation. Her behavior is completely unacceptable, and she's putting the safety of everyone on this flight at risk. When we landed, the FBI agents stormed onto the plane and arrested Karen, dragging her off in handcuffs. I watched as they read her rights and led her away, her protests and threats falling on deaf ears. As she was taken away, I couldn't help but feel a sense of relief. I had never encountered someone as entitled and abusive as Karen, and I hoped I never would again. I personally didn't know exactly what happened to her, but from the little knowledge I have regarding hijacking planes, I know that threatening to hijack a plane is a serious crime that can carry severe penalties. In the United States, the penalty for making a threat to hijack an aircraft is up to 20 years in prison, as well as fines and other penalties. This crime is covered under federal law, and the penalties can be even more severe if the threat is carried out or if anyone is injured as a result. It's important to note that making a threat to hijack an aircraft is taken very seriously by authorities and will be thoroughly investigated. Even if someone is just joking or making a threat in jest, they can still face criminal charges. It is never acceptable to make threats of any kind on an aircraft or in any other public place, and it's important to remember that such threats can have serious consequences. In the late 90s, I worked for a major retail store that was well known for its open commercials. I was hired for seasonal work and quickly learned how to run every department and quickly was working solo in many of the departments. Well, the particular day in question, I was assigned to their shoe department. It was 20 minutes to closing and the customer walked in with 4 kids, all under the age of 5. I had just finished cleaning up the department when she just left her kids to run wild while she looked for shoes in peace. I was seeing red. Her kids are in tattered shoes and their outfits aren't much better, while the entitled mother is in really nice clothing and is wearing what I knew to be around $200 pair of shoes. Also, there is no way I'm staying late to clean up after her kids. I was a nanny to large families and foster families before moving to the state I currently live in, so I'm really good with kids. To top it off, at the time I'm 19 years old, and well, I'm an extremely sarcastic pity person. Cue my revenge. I go gather the kids as soon as she's out of sight and in my sweetest nanny way, ask them if they want new shoes today. All 4 kids' eyes light up and they are so excited that the nice lady said they got new shoes. Well, I measure their feet and take them over to where the children's shoes are. I let them pick shoes they want and not only make sure they fit, but put the pairs of shoes on the kids. After she stayed after closing, we had closed the metal doors to the mall, so she's locked inside the store. She comes out with a $90 pair of shoes for her to see her kids all smiling, holding shoe boxes and wearing shoes. The entitled mother starts telling the kids they didn't come to get them shoes, but that mommy needed new shoes. Cue the kids starting to bawl. The manager comes and the entitled mother starts getting uppity about how I needed to be fired for watching her kids, while she ignored them and helping them find new shoes. The manager takes the shoe boxes from the kids and looks at their old shoes and then looks at the entitled mother with an "Are you serious?" look on her face. She says, "Well, I've been watching security footage and noticed you left the kids without supervision as soon as you entered the store. Then she asked the entitled mother if she would like to purchase the kids' new shoes or if she would like us to call CPS and report her for negligence, as we have all the proof needed to have her kids taken by CPS. The entitled mother turns red and throws the shoes she was going to buy back towards the women's department and curtly tells me to ring the kids' shoes up. She paid and stormed out, without a receipt, so no returns, with the kids who are all super happy that they got new shoes. The next part I found out later when I ran into the manager shopping. The entitled mother came back to the store several months later. Apparently the manager couldn't get the situation off her mind and she called CPS on her. The entitled mother had paid with a check, so the manager had her name and address and asked for a wellness check on the kids. CPS in the end took the kids. The entitled mother returned to the store to confront me for her losing her meal ticket, as she lost her welfare checks when she lost the kids. Apparently she caused such a scene that the police were called. The entitled mother was arrested, permanently lost the kids, and the manager was in the process of trying to adopt all 4 kids when we spoke last. I lost contact with the manager after the store closed. The mall was torn down and much nicer commerce/residential open-air mall was rebuilt. The company closed the chain store down and now only has a cheaper store associated with red circles that the manager didn't go work for. Edit. Yes, I know that CPS doesn't just take kids when they are called. The threat of calling, especially back in the 90s, scared a lot of people. This happened a few years ago in 2018. I used to work as a nighttime security for an office building that rented office space for other companies on Paulista Avenue, which is pretty much the Brazilian version of Times Square, so it was pretty busy. We would work in Paris from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. and be off until 7 p.m. the next day, so work 12 hours and off 36 hours. We wouldn't get days off aside from an annual 20 to 30 day paid vacation. Other than that, whatever day your shift landed on, you had to be there. We were worked there through a security firm that had a contract with the building, so we would have a post supervisor that would work from Monday through Friday during the day shift that was responsible for letting us know if there was going to be any extra work being done in a building for us, to workers from other companies, and for shift scheduling in case someone was out sick. For example, he had to find someone to cover. Now that's out of the way, on to the actual story. So it was around October and I was excited because my girlfriend and I had bought tickets for the Brazil game show, which is our E3. But there was only one problem. I was scheduled for a shift on the same day, so I had to find someone to trade shifts with before then. So there I was one day waiting for my shift to end when the reception phone rings. I pick up and it's John, my co-worker, that takes over my shift, and he says he can't make it on time because he's in the hospital with his mother. This around 6:30 a.m. Great, thanks for the heads up, I guess. I say it's no problem and that I can wait. Luckily, it was a weekend and the offices are all closed, so I can just chill. I call the post supervisor to let them know I will be staying late due to John being late. Since company policy states there must be at least 2 of us at the post at all times, my partner goes home as soon as his relief arrives. And we just sit around talking for a bit. 12 p.m. comes around and John is still a no-show, so I try getting in touch with him a few times to no success. I talk to the post supervisor and he agrees to let me do the rest of the shift, since heck, I'm already there anyways and it'll be at least 2 hours before someone would show up for me to leave, and this was the perfect opportunity for me to get someone to take my shift for me to go to PGS. John agreed to take my shift on the day of the event, and I reminded the post supervisor every day for the entire week to make sure he wouldn't forget and that he would pass this on to HR and the general supervisor. We always had to notify them about shift trades. So the day comes and I'm at the event with my girlfriend and it's just amazing. We were having a great time and at about 6:50 p.m. My phone rang. I took a look and it was from work. I find it odd since everything was already worked out. I pick up and it's John asking where I am and if I'm arriving soon. Confused. I remind him that he's taken my shift today, and he says he can't because he promised another co-worker that he would take the day shift for extra money, so he had been there all day. I get angry and yell at him that he's been there all day and he knew I wouldn't be coming, and that if he at least had called earlier, I might have made it. But I was in another city and for him to figure it out, and that we had a deal. Later that night, I get a call from the general supervisor and he asks why I didn't show up for work. I explain what happened and he had no idea that John was supposed to take over my shift. Apparently, the post supervisor has forgotten to inform him. And I know that this wasn't done to screw me over cause me and the post supervisor are still very good friends till this day. But sadly, since nothing was confirmed, in the eyes of our bosses, I was in the wrong and ended up getting a one-day suspension. I saw it as a win. I could use an extra day off, but deep down I was very angry at John for screwing me over like that. All he had to do was call me earlier and I would have come in no problem. I later learned that he was stirring up trouble with the other night shift as well because he wanted to work nights because we get a 20% bonus for working at nights here in Brazil. So I knew then that I had to get back at him somehow. A few months later, I'm covering a night shift at a different post where John now works and we're working the shift together. We are stationed across the street from each other. It's a large property for a cement factory. I'm in the main reception and he's in the parking lot in the entrance post and switch every few hours. After the midnight switch, I notice he's turned off the camera for the inside of the post and says he's gonna take a nap. I say okay and thought this was the moment I have been waiting for. Caught sleeping on the job. I can't believe he'd forgotten the stunt he pulled on me, and that such a golden opportunity was presenting itself, but not even I could believe what was about to happen. I waited a little, and switched the camera on and I hit the jackpot. If only he really was sleeping. It turns out he was doing drugs with one of the women from the neighborhood. I instantly started recording this, but wait, there is more. They start having some fun. I really couldn't believe my eyes, like, really? He'll be lucky if he finds a job in this field again. I sent it all to the general supervisor and he was pissed. He came that same night to the post and I don't think I've ever heard yelling so loud. Told John to go to the headquarters as soon as his shift was over and that he was being fired. I was so happy. But wait, there is more. John decided to sue the firm for me having recorded him without his permission, and the firm tracked down the woman that he was with that night. Turns out, it wasn't a woman. It was a teen, an underage teen. John was arrested. I didn't want it to end as it did, but hey, he started this, and all I wanted was a day off. This story takes place in the 90s, which was a very different world to live in than what we have today. It was a sort of in the middle of the turning point between borderline abusive, tough love, and the advent of participation trophies. My karate instructor at the time was kind of like Cobra Kai. Not cartoonishly hard-assed, but honestly kind of leaning in that direction. I will call him brass bags. Sparring was like contact, and while you were encouraged to actually hit each other, you were of course expected to pull your punches. And everyone wore full sparring gear. Pads, cup, mouth guard and everything. So it wasn't like we were beating each other to death or anything. But if you drop your guard and take a side kick straight to the gut, you'll probably be on the ground for a bit. Karate is a contact sport, and we fully treated it as such. Anyway, another part of that environment was that only winners get promoted to the next belt. As part of your belt test, you had to do a kata to demonstrate your technique, and also win a light contact sparring match, Kumite rules, against another student who was also up for a belt promotion. only the winner gets promoted. So one weekend after demonstrating my form and winning the sparring match, I got promoted. Let's call the kid Greg. Because he was a good guy, Greg's dad, henceforth known as Crabskull, is just losing his mind. Greg was totally cool with it, like, hey, congrats on the win. Guess I need to work on my defense, huh? But Crabskull just wasn't having it, and started yelling at brass bags about how Greg deserves something for getting beat up. And he pays X amount of dollars a month for these lessons, so he expects some results, blah blah blah. Greg wasn't in any way beat up. I hardly touched him. I simply got 8 points ahead because he didn't keep his guard up. So Brass Bags is like, you're insisting that Greg deserves a ribbon for losing? Okie dokie artichoke. I'm paraphrasing most of this story because it's been like over 30 years, but he did literally say okie dokie artichoke, and I will never forget the big grin he had as he did so. And that brings us to our malicious compliance. Brass Bag steps into his office, shutting the door behind him. The whole time Greg is just like, Dad, just stop it. You're embarrassing me. This is why I live with my mom. But Crabskull apparently thought he had managed to intimidate the big bad karate teacher into getting his way. So he was just on cloud 9, until the office door opened and Brass Bag stuck a scrap of red ribbon into the belt of Greg's GI, with the word loser written on it in marker. Crabskull is speechless, sputtering like a fish out of water, before Brass Bags delivers a coup de grace. Don't worry, I made one for you too. And he hands Crabskull an even bigger scrape of red cloth with loser on it. Crabskull just completely deflated, realizing that he'd been beaten at his own game, and there was no way in hell he was beating Brass Bags at his. So he just kind of mumbles and leaves. The funniest part is he took his loser ribbon with him. Greg though wore that handmade loser ribbon to class every day until he finally passed his test. He completely owned the loser ribbon and turned it into a source of motivation. No idea where he is now, but good on you, man. Hope you're still owning your failures and getting stronger from them. And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching and see you next time.